program, Hearty Soups for Cold Winter Nights. And my name is Teresa Rakowski, and I work at this location, Eastwood Branch, and I also work at the Powell Branch Library, and that's in the Douglas Community Center. I'm not a cook, except I do cook at home, so I have some recipes over there that have 3 soups that I made at home, and I'm going to just go through the recipes with you in a minute. But first of all, I want to ask you, how many of you make soups at home? Okay, does anybody have a favorite soup that they really love to make?
Most of them.
Most of them? Okay. This is a perfect time for making soups. I start making soups like in October, or depending on when the weather starts changing, all the way to the end of March, you know, and there's so many different types of soups you can make. I have some books over there that you're welcome to check out. We have a nice collection of other cookbooks upstairs in the 641 section. And now the first soup I made, which is the ham and split pea soup, took me over 3 hours to make. And that's sort of a long process because you have to soak the beans for a good hour, and then you have to boil them, and then you have to simmer them, and then you start adding the other ingredients. So it does take quite a bit of time to do that. So if you haven't made a split pea and ham soup, it might just be easier to buy a mix, or one of those. Bear Creek has these little packages that you can buy, and you can make it at home, but it wouldn't be so labor intensive for you. If I had to do it again, I probably wouldn't make this one again, because it does take, unless you have a lot of time on your hands. And you have to really be there to stir the soup, or else it's going to stick to the bottom of the container that you have on the stove. The first soup that I have is a split pea and ham soup. And like I said, that was the most labor-intensive one to make. It said it took a total time of 165 minutes. That's a long time to make a soup. And like I said, you might as well just get a Bear Creek mix and just do it yourself if you don't want to spend that, unless you have a lot of time and that you can devote in the kitchen to doing this. But this is a split pea soup. And the reason why I did all these soups at home is because first of all, I have a stove, I have an oven, we don't have any of that stuff here at the Eastwood Branch Libraries. We have a microwave. That's about as far as we have. So that's why I decided to make these soups at home. This is a split pea soup. This one does not have any kind of special embellishments. Like the SOPA Azteca has a lot of different things that you can put inside the soup. But this one basically has the split peas. It's based with chicken broth. It's got the celery. It's got the carrots. It's got the onions. And then you just follow the recipe, and basically it's not that difficult to do. I didn't put a lot of salt or a lot of pepper in, because I know not everybody can tolerate a lot of salt. So I have salt and pepper up here. And I think I'm going to heat this up just a little bit more, just to make sure it's really hot, because you do want to eat something hot here. So if you'd like to come up here, come on up, and let's taste the first soup. This is the split pea and ham soup. And to help yourself to a bowl, there's napkins, there's soup spoons. Help yourself. And the next soup I have that I want to make sure is extra hot is my favorite, and that's on that same page as that one, and it's called SOPA Azteca. I love Mexican food, and I love really good Mexican food. So a lot of the stuff you get in Mexican restaurants, especially when they're Americanized, aren't as good as if you'd go to Mexico, for example, or somewhere else. But this soup is one of my favorites because I love chicken usually, and chicken's a really good form of protein. One thing I didn't add in this soup that would be real good would be to add black beans. Black beans would add that extra dimension. Another thing that they don't say to put that I think would be good is cilantro. Cilantro is a really good thing to add in a soup like this, and I didn't add that because, frankly, I forgot. When I read this recipe, it doesn't say to add cilantro, but cilantro really is a great thing to add to a soup like this. And one thing I like about this soup is that you add the different embellishments. You add the sour cream, you add the Monterey Jack cheese, you add the avocados, and you add these ancho pasilla chilies. And these are chilies that look like this. And what I did is I sort of roasted them on the top of the oven with a little bit of oil. And it also brings out this really fragrant orange color of the oil. And you can use that oil for other things too. But these chilies are pretty hard, and they're light brown when you get them, and then they turn almost black when you fry them. Another thing you put in there is limes. Lime is, of course, a great thing to add to any kind of soup, especially Mexican soup. Limes add that certain kind of zest that you're looking for. And the lime, I think lime wedges would be a really good thing to infect. And then the last thing I made, like I said, were these crunchy things made from corn tortillas that I just fried up. And I did that this morning. You just put it in a pan with oil, but the oil has to be extremely hot, and it only takes about 2 minutes for them to heat up. And I did this morning because you don't want them to be rancid, you want them to be fresh. And I also didn't want them to stick together, so I just put them in layers in this little container as well. So if you want to come over here, and I will be serving the soup in a minute, so I think that soup should be about ready. And the next soup we're going to have is probably the most fattening of the soups, but that soup is, who likes Reuben sandwiches here? Anybody here? I like Reuben sandwiches. Reuben sandwiches, normally, if you go to a good deli or place, you get the rye bread. It isn't even toasted, it's just rye bread, and then they put a little bit of maybe is it Russian dressing? Just a little, or Thousand Island. They put sauerkraut in there, and they also put pastrami or corned beef or something like that, and mustard. They always have mustard on the side. And this soup I started making because, pardon?
And the Swiss cheese.
And it's, well, of course, Swiss cheese. How can you forget Swiss cheese? And this soup recipe said to add a lot of cheese, but the more cheese I added, especially cheese that wasn't sliced, the sliced cheese just wouldn't melt. I kept on stirring it, and it was sticking to the sides of the bowl. So I used just regular shredded Swiss cheese, and that worked a lot better. And you don't want to buy, I hate to say it, you don't want to buy Meijer's brand. If you're going to buy Swiss cheese, buy a good quality Swiss cheese from like a reputable cheese maker instead of Meijer's, who makes almost anything. I have nothing against Meijer's, but I think their cheese is just not quite as good. It doesn't have that flavor. Swiss cheese is supposed to have a little bit more flavor than the one you would get that isn't theirs. And this soup is one that you eat with these, instead of eating the rye bread, you can have croutons. And they told me to make rye croutons, and I wanted to buy rye croutons, but I couldn't find any, and I didn't want to cook anymore, so I just brought these garlic cheese or garlic butter croutons that you can just put in the soup. And then just make them, just slice them and just stick them in the oven with a little bit of olive oil or something, and yeah, that would be easy. That would be pretty easy to do. This one does require a little bit of cream, and the cream, they said, for a big soup like that, it requires a little under a cup or about a cup, so that's not too bad, you know. If you want to cut down on that, they said you can also use sour cream, or you can use whipping cream and not use as much whipping cream. You can even use whole milk, but I don't think whole milk quite does it, you know.
Maybe half and half.
Yeah, half and actually this is half and half. This is not, this is half and half. Yeah. So. Right, they love the snow. So help yourself to this soup now, and you might want to grab a new bowl. I think this should be hot enough. You won't need any of this stuff, but you will need the croutons. So let me bring the croutons a little closer up. If you'd like some more bread, help yourself.
Are there more spoons up there? Do you know, or-